Did you watch the debate last night?
So I have not watched the debate yet. I have seen all the clips on social media of different parts, but have not watched the whole full debate yet. I'm planning on doing that sometime after Rush. I know it's a little bit down the line, but at least before the election, I'm planning to watch that one.
Gotcha.
So,
What issues matter most to you?
well, right now, obviously inflation is pretty high. I mean, I'm not crazy into numbers when it comes to the inflation, but I can go to the grocery store, go to the gas station. That's the biggest one for me. And I see my gas prices have gone up tremendously. So that's a big issue for me. I would say religion is a big part of my life as well. So when it comes to abortion and pro-life, pro-choice, I have my standing on that. So those are two very big important things to me. And along with that, just college. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what here in college, but I mean, it's a big part of my life, and if something comes up, I want to hear about what President Trump has to say or Vice President Kamala Harris has to say about it. So anything that has to do with college, I want to hear about.
How do you feel about the emergence of Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee rather suddenly?
It is quite sudden. I mean, if there was to be a guess on who it would have been anyways, most people would have guessed it would have been Kamala after Biden, right? It is very sudden. Obviously, you see that the policies aren't fully aligned. Like I said, I'm not fully in there. I'm not fully deep into the politics, but when I do read on it, and whenever I do try and find some of it, it is hard to find a straight line, I guess is a great way to say it for me, exactly what Vice President Kamala Harris wants to do with her policies. So.
That was a big thing going into this debate, is because after Biden dropped out, she really kind of was not in the spotlight. She kind of just rode the high, if you will, of being the new candidate, having that enthusiasm from the Democratic Party coalesce around her going into the debate, giving her lots of momentum. But the debate, she actually put forward a bunch of policy, and that was the first time she had really done that since Joe dropping out. So if you want to hear what she at least has to say,
I would love to hear it.
That is all in the debate.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half long,
and I will watch it
it's
all
a wild watch. It's crazy, but she definitely puts forward some policies. How do you feel each candidate would do on foreign policy?
Well, I was younger, obviously, whenever Trump was in office. However, from what I've read, and I have done extensive research on that part of his past term, and I did very much agree with how he ran our foreign policy, especially at the border. We do have a border crisis, and that is not a debate, I would say. As someone from Texas who has family in Texas, who have family and friends who have experienced the border crisis, it's a real thing, and that is an issue that needs to be addressed. And when President Trump was in office, he did a great job controlling our border, and we had less border issues. Obviously, he wanted to build the wall. Now, whether or not that was the reasoning, we had less border issues. That's hard to say, right? I'm not an expert on that. I can't tell you that's the reasoning. However, whenever I do hear and read and look at all the experiences that my family and friends have had, there is a difference between Trump in office and Joe Biden's administration in office at our border.
Since Joe Biden has come into office, a number of wars have started around the globe. How do you see those wars ending, and what should the U.S.'s role be in those wars, if any?
Yeah, I am obviously in the strong belief that the U.S. military should be and is the strongest military in the world, and I believe that with that, right, with great power comes great responsibility. I believe that we should be a part of keeping the peace around the world. So I'm not necessarily going to tell you how the war should end, but with the least amount of fatalities, especially American fatalities, right, as possible is the best way. Now, I don't know how to do that. I'm not an expert in it. I'm not a military guy, but I know that our military men and women sacrifice their lives every single day, risk their lives for us to protect us and protect others out of our country. So Not sure how I want it to end, but like you said, there's been many wars started since Joe Biden has joined office, and I would love to see them end within the next term, obviously.
Do you think those two occurrences are related? Joe Biden coming into office and the war started, or do you think they're based on other issues?
There's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, I'm going to speak from how I see it and what I've read and what I've watched on the news. And I believe so. You know, it's going to be hard to say because there are so many factors that play into everything that happens in our world. But with under Donald Trump, it's a known fact that there was no war started under his administration. And when Joe Biden came into office, obviously our military seemed to pull out of some countries, right? And those countries ended up having wars come down. So I'm not saying that it's necessarily his fault, but I'm saying some of the actions he might have taken may be the reasons that we have wars now.
Gotcha. A lot of young people who are kind of feel disenfranchised with politics because it seems a word that's been thrown around a lot is the gerontocracy. So basically, everyone that's in the Congress, well, the vast majority of people in Congress are over the age of 50. How do you feel about that?
It's great to have young minds in everything. I mean, whether that's in politics or in a Starbucks, right? We're sitting next to a coffee shop. That's the first thing that came to mind. It's great to have young minds everywhere. Social media is a big part of our lives now, and having someone who's able to speak through social media, speak to us, is a great thing. However, I also know young minds, including myself, right? We think we're smarter than others, and that's a big issue. Growing up, my parents have always told me, you don't know everything, right? And that's the truth, right? My parents are older than me. They know more, right? Now, sometimes I may disagree with them, and I will stand my ground, and sometimes I still think I'm right after an argument. But whether we believe it or not, as a young mind, the adults know more, right? Now, does that mean necessarily we should close the doors on young minds in politics? No. We need them there. We need young minds. We need future thinkers, the ones who are going to be there growing up with us in the next generation. However, that doesn't mean that the old guys, you know, the guys in Congress who are older than 50, I don't think we should get rid of them. We need them. They've seen more than us. They know more than us. And I want to stick to those values of respecting adults, saying yes sir, yes ma'am. That's a big thing to me. So I respect adults and I respect their choices, and that's why we vote. So if we don't like it, we can vote them out. But as long as their policies align with what we believe and the voters agree to vote on older congressmen, older congresswomen, that's fine by me.
Lastly, where do you get your news from? And then how often do you check that source or those sources?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest thing is going to be social media, right? Now, I take that with a grain of salt. Before we even started this video and the conversation, I mentioned to you that, yes, I've seen the clips of the debate from last night. However, I need to go and watch that debate myself before the election, before I vote.
I'm curious as to the things you have seen. So I watched the full debate,
Yes.
but I haven't really been looking on social media. From the clips on social media, how do you think it went?
Well, it's hard to say. I like to see all the funny stuff. So my For You page, my Instagram feed, my Reels, they're all kind of the banter of Kamala Harris dodging questions. Now, this, like I said, this is social media. This is not my statement. This is what I've seen. However, what I saw was Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, sometimes dodging questions, having some interesting facial expressions, while at the same time you have Trump, who he clearly got aggressive at times where I didn't feel like he needed to. Now that, like I said, that's only what I see on social media. You saw his little comment about cats and dogs and eating that, and I don't necessarily know what that was about yet. I watched the clip, didn't watch the debate, so I can't speak on that too much, but that's what I've seen on social media.
Awesome, thank you. What is the role of YouTube channels in your media consumption?
Pretty heavily, actually. I would say that's pretty much after I see a clip on TikTok or Instagram or whatever I'm scrolling on. A quick thing I would go to is YouTube to maybe search up the entire clip or even some analysis from people. Now, I would say a big part of it is reading. I do read a decent bit about politics. New York Times, Fox. I've read CNN as well. I try and read a majority of things, you know, so I'm not getting what some would say is biased opinion, but I try my best.
Gotcha.
So.
Are there any specific outlets on YouTube besides like those per se like alternate media, say like Breaking Points, TYT, anything like that?
No, I'll be honest. I have not watched any of
All
that.
right, cool. Just figuring out the landscape.
Yes, sir.
It's been interesting. A lot of people, 20, 21, 19, a lot of their consumption comes from social media, and that's just a completely different. That's just a massive generational divide between, say, the baby boomers and Gen Z. So there's just a big thing of where people are getting information from that's different, and it's not, say, good or bad, but it's just different. But thank you very much.
Yes,
That
sir.
was awesome,
of course.
dude.
No, that was a great conversation.